What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Destination the Show. This is episode 70. We are recording on Wednesday, February 26th. As always, my name is Jamie Cameron, joined by Jeremy Nygaard and Theo Tollefson. What's up, guys? How we doing?
Doing all right.
I'm good. How are you, Jamie?
I'm doing well. I'm trying to get high energy and get amped up for this trip to Fort Myers next week, but there's just like a mountain of things to do between now and then, and so I'm not like the light is not yet at the end of the tunnel for me, so I'm not as excited as I want to be. But I will be by this time next week. I'll be chilling in 80 degrees in Fort Myers, getting ready to take in some spring training games. So you bozos are stuck here in the Midwest. So
It's true. We will be here.
Yeah, we'll make it through.
Well, excited to dig in with you guys on a brand new episode. But before we do all the housekeeping and preview what we're going to talk about today, we should talk about this new look. What do we think, guys? How are we feeling about this?
We look professional finally.
I'm on a smaller screen, so that's even better.
It's taken 70 episodes, like a year and 2 months, for Brock to finally help us get our S together and have a decent layout for the podcast. So
It's going to be a big help.
it's going to be a big help. We're making progress. All right. For episode 70 today, we're in a little bit of a lull, right, guys? So we have done all of our top 10 lists. We are at the on the front end of spring training with game action just getting going. So we thought it would be fun to dig into predictions. And this went, just speaking for myself, absolutely disastrously last year. So excited to make a fool of myself again. And we'll predict division winners, wild card, World Series winners, as well as some of the individual awards when we get there. Before we do that, we're going to quickly do some housekeeping. And then I want to touch base with you guys about one Twins note before we jump in. So housekeeping, if you want to support the show, like and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform of choice. That helps us a ton. You can catch all of our content on YouTube. The handle is @Destination the Show. We are also on Twitter at DTS_pod1 or Blue Sky. Handle there is Destination the Show. We love and appreciate getting questions from folks, comments, feedback, anything you want to share is great. So you can send those to us via social media or via email. The email address there is destinationtheshow@gmail.com. So let's jump in. Before we hit these predictions, guys, I got to ask you, did anyone happen to catch a glimpse of the Dasan Hill video posted by the Twins, everyone's favorite Twitter account, Twins Player Development? And if you did, curious what you thought of what you saw.
Well, I mean, I obviously saw it, and that's because you text me and
7 seconds after it was posted.
Wouldn't stop bothering me about it until I engaged with you in conversation. So, I mean, it's fun to see, and I think what you have to remember, what we all have to remember, is we get the highlights, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we get to finally see him in action. Looked really good. Looked kind of effortless. I think that was the big takeaway for me. I'm no pitching expert, but it looked like he was still like getting the feel for how the Twins want his delivery to look, and it looks like he's not like super engaged like with his back half. So I think there's more there because it's like it's an effortless delivery, but you could tell that there's some effort in repeating his delivery.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's exciting. And what we see from all dudes, not just Dasan Hill, is that the Twins look at stuff mechanically and get more out of the tank than previous coaching staffs would have, especially high school kids, right? So there's always reason to be optimistic, but there's a long way to go between now and that final destination for him. But they're not going to post something if he looks like junk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's fun. It's a good way to start out, and let's see what else happens.
Right on.
I mean, this is a guy who's going to be following the same game plan of development Charlie Soto had last season. So spending the whole season down in Fort Myers, getting comfortable there, getting adjusted to ball. And since we're bringing him up, Jamie, we're going to see how this looks in the new format, but I will plug your little video that you showed, okay, that's a little smaller than what we were expecting, but here's Jamie's video. If you want to check out a breakdown on Dasan Hill, we got that over at twinsdaily.com right now. So obviously not filling up the entirety of our little box here on the side, but it's
We're
a
working
lot
through it,
better than
guys.
I was expecting. So yeah, I think it's just, good to see these sorts of highlights for the younger guys. We have a whole year of just seeing how he develops in Fort Myers. I think there's a bar, and it may be an unfair comparison of, he's always going to be compared to how Charlie Soto was last season, but they're around the same age, developing at the same level. One throws right-handed, one throws left-handed, got different pitch selections and are different pitchers altogether. So, but this is just a good thing to know that this next wave of development in this pitching pipeline that everyone's been so obsessed about is finally showing some fruits at the major league level. And now we got a whole new generation of pitchers to get excited about. So take these small tidbits as we can, because, knocking on wood, it's been a good spring training so far in terms of having no news being good news.
Yep, 100%. And a couple of quick notes on Hill that I want to share, and I think none of these are going to be news to any Twins fans who are really in the weeds of the system, right? Noticeable uptick in velocity, and Jeremy, what you said is spot on, that we get the highlights, but the pre-draft scouting reports on Hill were that his fastball ticked up the spring before the draft, and he was sitting kind of 92, 95, tops 96. He was flashing 98 from the left side from kind of a difficult to pick up angle in that video. Changeup was sitting 85, slider sitting around the same, and just getting some ridiculous swings. So Theo, 100% agree with what you said, I think, and said this in both the video and a piece up at Twins Daily. I think the number one outcome you'd want to see is just like a healthy 2025. Hope he can get consistently throwing strikes. Hope he can miss some bats, and that would be a pretty great outcome for his first full season. Okay, let's start digging into predictions, because we have a ton to cover. So here's how we're going to go about this.
All right,
we are going to start with divisions. So we'll go AL first, division by division. Then we'll do wild cards. NL division by division, then we'll do wild cards there. We'll World Series winner, then we'll come back and do individual awards. We'll just kind of bump between the three of us, take turns to share our division winner or our pick, and give a little bit of rationale about why that was the choice. If I'm recalling last year, I think I had an Atlanta Braves Seattle Mariners World Series, so it wasn't necessarily my finest showing.
No.
I don't know if you guys reviewed your picks from last year, but I remember my World Series pick, and I was like, nope, that's as far as I'm going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, I don't want to revisit mine either. That's why I don't have them near me right now.
Okay, Jeremy.
I'm guessing I wasn't any better. I don't actually remember, but I'm gonna write them all down this year, and I'm gonna keep this piece of paper so we can.
Okay.
Back.
There we go. I dig it. Okay, why don't we start with the AL East? Jeremy, I'm going to put you on the spot here and have you go first. Who do you have to win the AL East, and why?
So I went with the Yankees because I hate them. And this way, if and when they win the division, I don't feel I feel like this is the only way for me to be okay with them winning it is by picking them. So obviously their lineup is very good. Their pitching staff is pretty good. They're coming off of a very good season. So I do think there would be some difficult times with them, just because I think they're aging a little bit, but they get to have beards. So the facial hair is going to be good for at least, I think, like a game and a half, and that's what they're going to need in the AL East. So I have the Yankees, which is not super fun.
Right on. Theo, who you got for the AL East?
Yeah, I also picked the Yankees because, like Jeremy, I hate them too, and I'm usually wrong with my preseason predictions, so I'm hoping that turns out to be wrong, and it will be some other team in the AL East that is probably not the Toronto Blue Jays, sorry, Jays Sensors fans, that wins the division. So their pitching staff, I would say, is definitely better than last year with the addition of Max Fried and then Devin Williams in the back end of the bullpen, but their lineup, I think, drops a step or two because you lose Juan Soto. Yes, you got Paul Goldschmidt and Cody Bellinger, 2 former MVPs in there, but Bellinger is, a wild card in terms of what his results are going to be. Goldschmidt's getting older, and you just don't know what is going to come out with him. Judge is going to be 33. We don't know if he's going to see regression, but he's at least going to be in right field full time. And I'm assuming Bellinger is going to be their full time center fielder. So, yeah, we'll see what the Beards do. Game and a half, maybe 2 games at best. Get in them some additions. I know it's going to help Devin Williams for sure because it's pretty much his doing to finally have that ruling broke after decades,
100%.
maybe even his whole century.
Devin Williams without a beard, and his like headshot, his player headshot looks so forlorn and sad.
The worst in my lifetime of like a player going to the Yankees and having to shave everything, Andrew McCutchen. That was just was terrible when he was there in 2018 after he got traded. That was just oh my God.
Okay. Well, I can't stack up behind you guys and go through all 3 of us in on the Yankees. I do share that concern about their offense. You're losing a lot of thump with no Juan Soto. And as much as I despise how this organization has gone about their competitive window, I'm going to pick the Orioles to win the AL East. I think they're the other team to me that's up there. They have such a great core of young hitters. Looking for a bounce back season from Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, obviously in the AL MVP conversation last year. You're also looking for steps forward from some of their young guys. Kobe Mayo got his, debut hiccups out of the way, hopefully in the stretch run last year. The thing that I struggle with, guys, and I think we've touched a little bit on this podcast before, is just like the lack of aggression in pursuing a playoff caliber starter, either through free agency, Corbin Burns, hello, or via trade, I just find disturbing. They just have a bunch of dudes in their rotation, so that's my concern for the Orioles. But I guess I'll go with the Orioles just to keep things a little different from y'all. Okay, let's move on to the West. So we'll rotate through who goes first, too, just to keep things fun and interesting. So, Theo, let's pivot to you first. Who's your pick for the AL West, sir?
The Texas Rangers. I think they are going to have a healthier team than they did this last season, learn from those mistakes to get back into the postseason. I don't know if they're going to make it as deep as they did in 2023 and win it all, but I think they are hungry to get back to the top. I think Corey Seager, Marcus Semien being healthy all season, along with, Wyatt Langford and Evan Carter developing a little bit better after some poor, not living up to the full expectations people were expecting from them in their rookie seasons. Mm-hmm. And if you can even get Jacob deGrom for 15 to 20 starts and he still shows signs of his old self, that's going to be making up for having Tyler Mahle in the rotation. I'm sorry to hit on him like that, but this is Twins fans and recent memories. And having deGrom healthy or healthy for 2/3 of the season is going to be huge for Kumar Rocker, Jack Leiter, who did not have the most impressive debut last year. And they have probably, I'd say, one of the deepest, pitching pipelines in the American League alongside the Twins and Detroit Tigers. So, they got it deep. I think Jake Berger comes in to replace Nathaniel Lowe, who goes to the Nationals. So I like what they have. I think Houston's going to be regressing, and the Rangers are the team who are going to capitalize on them regressing and take advantage of that.
That's a great summary, Theo. I'll go next, and I'm gonna follow you up, and I'm gonna back up your pick, man. I'm going with the Rangers. Also, I have a little bit of a soft spot for the Rangers. I used to live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I think you outlined a lot of the reasons, like really eloquently. They were so unhealthy last year, so banged up, both their lineup and obviously their pitching too. They couldn't have had much worse injury luck. I do think one of the keys to the Rangers being successful is going to be in that core of young guys, both position players and starting pitchers. You need some consistent production from Wyatt Langford, who got really good or played really well, down the stretch, and Evan Carter, who was a kind of rookie of the year dark horse last year and just had
I think he was my pick.
Injury. Was he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he was one of my picks. I remember.
And then, as you say, one of Kumar Rocker or Jack Leiter, you need to number one, stay healthy, but just pitch effectively and solidly and solidify that rotation with some of the other health question marks they have there. So I really like the Rangers pick. It's really hard for me to entertain picking Houston when you trade Kyle Tucker away, regardless of what his contract situation is. I picked Seattle to go all the way to the World Series last year on the back of the strength of their starting pitching, which was magnificent, but I am just way too burned by their offense to double down on them this year. They have not done much to improve their offense, in my opinion. A miserable park to hit in. So I'm going to double down with you and go with the Rangers also. Jeremy, over to you.
I'm going to stick with your team from last year, and I'm going to take the Mariners on the account that their pitching staff is phenomenal. Bullpen's not great, I guess, but when you have that rotation, I just think there's an advantage there. I don't love their lineup. In fact, I'm not even sure if I can really say I'd like their lineup a lot outside of really their 2, 3, and 4. But Polanco, Rodriguez,
Rosarena,
Cal Raleigh is probably the other one in there.
Yeah. Do we trust Jorge Polanco at third base for them, knowing his time there?
I don't think their lineup is great, but I do like that they have guys that I've been fans of as Twins, right? They got 3 former Twins in Polanco and Garver and Donovan Solano. And Luke Raley, I guess. So that's another.
He never played for the team, but he was farming.
He was on the roster, like he was in the organization, right?
Yeah, he wasn't in the big leagues though.
No, but they're older. But I looked at the teams and I'm like, yeah, not sure on the Rangers. Don't love the Astros. So I'll go Seattle and I guess because you couldn't take the Yankees third, I can't take the Rangers third, but I was going to take the Mariners either way. So Mariners for me for AL West.
All right, moving on to the AL Central. I have planned and organized this poorly because it's me to go first in the AL Central.
Yeah, who do you have?
Not looking to do. So, okay, let me preface my pick by saying I think the AL Central is a crapshoot, and I think there is a realistic universe where you could see any one of 4 teams winning it. That said, I'm going to go with the Detroit Tigers. Let me talk through my rationale a little bit here for Detroit. Obviously, they won on kind of a dream run last year. I think that was bizarre. There was a lot of luck. They were really playing with fire with some of their pitching matchups there. Obviously, at the top of the rotation, you have Tariq Skubal, reigning AL Cy Young. That's a nice way to start. They got Jack Flaherty back, assuming he's healthy, which is a big assumption, given that his velo was down in the playoffs last year. That's a really solid 1-2 punch. I think what you're relying on with their rotation is, can one of their guys, whether that's Reese Olson, Casey Mize, or a guy we might talk later when we get to AL Rookie of the Year candidates, Jackson Jobe, pitch solidly to solidify the middle of that rotation. The Tigers have one of the sneaky better bullpens in baseball. It's made up of a bunch of dudes you never really heard of, like Bo Brisky, who just quietly throws like 99. They have a bunch of dudes who throw gas in their bullpen. Similarly to the Twins, their lineup is a little more uncertain to me. You've got Riley Green in right field. He was like a 3.5, 4-win player last year. Can he take another step forward? Yeah, he was great. Parker Meadows, who's going to accrue value because of his defense in center field. You've got Colt Keith coming off a rough rookie season, but there's prospects they have in the upper levels of their minor league system, like Jace Young, who might slide into candidacy at third base for them. Spencer Torkelson, really poor up and down year for him. So I think the variable here that I'm uncertain about with the Tigers is their offense, similar to the Twins. I was back and forth between the Tigers and the Twins for the AL Central, and I'm really not feeling super confident about the Twins lineup, and that's probably an overreaction to how the 2024 season ended. So I'll be curious to hear you guys' picks, but I went with the Tigers in a close race in the Central. Jeremy, who's your pick for the Central?
I took the Tigers as well.
Wow.
So similar thoughts as you. I do like their lineup. You when you said sneaky good bullpen, I was thinking sneaky good lineup.
Okay.
So my dogs are here, so I'm gonna turn over to Theo.
I guess I will be the homer among us three.
Yes, let's
I
go.
did pick the Twins. I think they are taking a lot to heart from the collapse at the end of last year. And I mean, again, it really depends on how healthy you can keep Correa, Buxton, and Lewis for the lineup for sure. But the starting rotation and everyone who is in the minor leagues right behind them in case one person goes down is just, again, the only team in the division that really can match that depth in their organization for pitching is the Detroit Tigers and maybe Cleveland, but they haven't been as good, honestly, since Shane Bieber was coming up in terms of just having random guys and dominate. So I think Detroit will edge out the Guardians in that sense, but I just see the Twins taking everything to heart, changing up the game and how they're playing out there and coming back and taking the division. I don't think it's going to be winning more than 90 games, but 90 games is probably all you need to win this AL Central.
I dig it, and I can see it happening. Okay, let's move on. Jeremy, you got the difficult one here because you're going to be up first for AL wild cards. So need your wild card selections from the American League and any rationale you want to share.
I need you to go to Theo first, and I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm
not going to hop in, Theo, if you need.
Yeah. No, I chose the Red Sox, Orioles, and Mariners as my 3 wildcard teams. I think no AL Central team is going to get in on like last year where it was pretty much all 3, except Orioles. So I think the Red Sox have really beefed up their pitching depth. I think Bregman, bringing him in, put them over the edge to get one of those wild card spots. I think the Orioles are going to tread water and still have enough of the young talent really pan out in the lineup, but the lineup doesn't have that veteran bat like the rotation does, equivalent to Charlie Morton. And I think Charlie Morton's presence is going to be huge for them, even though, he's 41 now. He's obviously going to be some regression, but there's so much he can do in terms of just stabilizing and being a good leader for all those young arms in the rotation. So I think those are the 3 teams we'll see sneak in into Seattle, as Jeremy alluded to earlier, that just have such strong pitching depth that, I'm going to really break down later when we get to Cy Young picks. I won't say who, but it's one of them. And I think if Arozarena and Rodriguez especially can find a way to hit in that ballpark, even if it's just, having a 800 plus OPS in Safeco Field, even though it's T-Mobile Park, I'm always going to call it what it was when I was a kid. I think, you can't really hate on those teams' pitching depths, and it really will come down to, again, those 3 being the teams to get in. It will really depend on who acquires whom at the trade deadline to really bolster their team and their deficits and their needs. And that's really what it will come down to. But I think those are my 3 safe bets. And, I think it was nice once Bregman signed, I could finally just okay, now I can plan out how I'm going to have all my preseason predictions. And I think his addition to the Red Sox, despite, who's going to be playing third, I don't know who is on third, just like the old bit.
Neither does anyone in Red Sox camp, apparently.
No, they don't. But I think their lineup is really solidified. I think Giolito will be okay. And they've made so many additions to that rotation. I just cannot see them not making it in.
The fun thing about Boston, too, that we haven't talked about much on this show yet is just the potential impact of the superstar rookies or the potential superstar rookies that they have.
Roman Anthony is, he's going to probably get up at some point. But that's the thing. Now that they have all these veterans who are looking like they're healthy, when are they going to have to make so much noise at AAA and be healthy just to crack into the major league lineup? So that could work to their advantage if everyone's healthy. But if someone gets hurt, who knows?
Yep. Okay. This is going to be fun, and this is going to be, I feel like wild cards are really going to be the separator when it comes to evaluating our picks. Maybe we'll do an evaluating our picks show shortly after the season's done, just so we can hold ourselves accountable for that. That'd be fun.
Maybe.
Okay. My wild card picks, I'm going to go Yankees. just because I feel like the overall depth of that squad. You brought up a bunch of good points with the Yankees. Their pitching, Fried is a great addition, obviously.
Mhm.
I'm going to go Yankees. And then I'm going to go 2 from the AL West. So I'm going to go Houston and Seattle as my other 2 wild card picks. Jeremy outlined some reasons for loving Seattle's pitching. Hard to argue with that. And so and I think you made great points about Seattle's lineup, right? No one would have ever predicted that Julio Rodriguez would have had such a miserable 3/4 of a season that he did in 2024. Rosarena really wasn't very impactful after he came over via trade. And Houston, despite trading away Kyle Tucker, is still a really strong and deep squad. It's kind of the last vestiges of that core of like perennial AL Championship Series teams. So I'm thinking one final ride for them. And I just felt like I couldn't make a super compelling case for other teams in the East just because the East is going to be so fiercely competitive. Like Toronto and Tampa Bay and Boston are similar caliber teams for me. And then in the Central, I completely agree with you. I do not think there's going to be a wild card team from the Central. It's just such a mediocre division. It was such an uninspiring offseason in the AL Central in general. So I'm going Yankees, Seattle Mariners, and Houston Astros as my wild cards. Jeremy, you're up, sir, for AL wild card teams if you got them.
I do. So I went with the Rangers. You guys had the Rangers to win the division. I went with the Orioles. I know that Jamie also had them in the playoffs. And my third wild card, I went with the Boston Red Sox.
Same as mine.
The exact same, huh?
Well,
Yeah,
no, the Red Sox. I got it.
Same.
So
same
mine were Mariners, Orioles, Red Sox.
Yeah.
So we all pretty much had the same teams except the Twins and Astros going in. But everything else is pretty much unanimous in terms of they're getting in, but different selections of who wins division and not.
Yeah, I'm just
all right, guys. Let's move on. We're gonna move over into NL divisional picks. Theo, I'm gonna put you on the spot for the first one here. Maybe the most difficult NL division to pick is the NL East. Theo, who you got winning it and why?
The Phillies.
Ooh.
I think they are frustrated with how the last 2 seasons have planned out, especially getting eliminated early in the postseason or at the very last NLCS game like they did in 2023. So, I mean, they have a strong core of guys that they are starting to age out a little bit, and they need to win now. Otherwise, their window might be closing in the next year or 2. So I think they are really going to go all out and do everything they can to get that division, get a bye, and then hopefully make their way much further into the postseason than they did a year ago.
Right on, Phillies. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on the East, the NL East?
Yeah, I had the Phillies as well. Like their rotation, like their lineup. Despite it getting older now, I think there's one more shot for them.
Okay, I'm gonna. I'm going a different route from you guys again. I'm going to go with the Atlanta Braves. The Braves had a disappointing year, and they were another team that really struggled with injuries. Lost Ronald Acuna for the entire year, lost Spencer Strider right at the beginning of the season. Both of those guys should be back in short order. Strider, I believe, is supposed to be back pitching in the big league rotation in May. Despite that, they had a ton of things go well for them. Spencer Swellenbach is a really exciting young pitcher. I like Atlanta's pitching. Part of me, a healthier lineup in 2025. Ozzie Albies was another guy who was just banged up all of last season. But that's going to be a really, really tough division between the Braves, the Mets, and the Phillies. Let's move over to the NL Central. This division obviously has a couple of the teams that we talk about the most. Jeremy, why don't you kick us off with your pick for the Central?
So I struggled with this one a little bit. Settled on the Cubs. Don't love the Cubs rotation, but I do like the potential with their lineup, adding Tucker. I'm curious to see if they add anybody else or if they're going to go with Matt Shaw at third base. I do like Matt Shaw, but I think they flirted with the Bregman deal and ended up not going that way, or him not going that way. Not certain on their bullpen. It's going to be a really good division. And did you say Central or did you tell me West? Did I skip this one?
No, it's Central.
Okay. And so, yeah.
I went out of order. I'm now realizing, Jeremy. So sorry for throwing a wrench in the works.
So, yeah, I went with the Cubs, and I do think that it's going to be a very competitive division.
Theo, your pick for the NL Central.
Brewers. I think they are the National League version of the Rays for the last decade, and they at least have enough pieces to still put things together, and the NL Central is a little more wide open than the AL East typically is. So I think the Brewers will still find a way to reign. Will they make it past the first round unlike the last few seasons? Hard to say. The pitching rotation might get a little more depth with Brandon Woodruff being back this season. That could be a huge thing if he's looking on the upside, returning from his injury. The lineup is a little meeker than it was last season, losing Willy Adames, but Joey Ortiz is going to be playing full time. Who am I forgetting about prospect wise? Corner infield, not Ortiz, but
Oliver Dunn.
Yep, Dunn. He was decent last year. He's probably going to be taking a step up here in the Jackson trio. I just like that guy too much to hope he doesn't have the typical sophomore slump and gets himself back into form and just keeps it rolling like he was last season. And, Yelich, we'll see how healthy he is, but as long as he can get into that 100, 120 games range, that could be huge for their lineup as well. And just making sure they can hold on to that division title for another season and just make another run at the postseason and hopefully get a little deeper this time.
Right on. Brewers, love it. Okay. I'm also going to go with the Cubs in the Central, and my pick is that the Cubs will win the Central by at least 8 games. I think they are far and away the class of the division. There is one potential stumbling block, in my opinion, and that is pitching depth, in particular in the starting rotation. Things get thin after their top 3. You're kind of relying on Matthew Boyd. I don't know that I want to be relying on Matthew Boyd. And so I would hope that the Cubs are aggressive at the trade deadline in the pursuit of some type of controllable starting pitching, because they have a ton of top 100 prospects by most industry lists. A lot of those guys aren't necessarily super high impact guys. It's more dudes in the 40 to 75 range. So that's my one issue with the Cubs. I think they have by far the best lineup in that division, so I'm expecting them to win it comfortably. Having said that, I think I said the exact same thing last year, and they were never really in it. So,
nope.
We'll see what happens. Okay, last but not least, NL West. Sorry, you guys, for going out of order. Theo, why don't you kick us off with maybe the least interesting division in the NL?
Are we going to have one unanimous division? It's going to be this one, Dodgers. I mean, the juggernaut, they added everything they could. Their pitching rotation, the starting rotation is probably still going to be filled with injuries, and they're still going to find ways to get guys out there and win a ton of games. And, the whole question with Shohei and when he's going to pitch this season, he will. It's just they have so much depth. Why rush him back further than he needs to, and he's still going to be raking at the plate. I mean, their lineup is still so deep. It's just, it feels like their team just going into the season feels like what you want to do when you were playing, at least in my case, MLB 2K as a kid, and just getting all the best players without being too overpowering, but still overpowering to the rest of the league. So that's what it feels like. We'll see how that holds up. They can win 114 games, but who knows how they'll make it in the postseason.
Yep. Jeremy, any divergence from a Dodgers pick in the NL West?
No, that was actually the first one I wrote down when I started. So yeah, I feel like it's going to be pretty uninteresting for the rest of the NL West this year.
When your DH is projected to accrue 6.8 FWAR That's probably a good sign that you're set up for a solid season. Just to your point, Theo, walking through some of their rotation options. Forget Otani for a second. Blake Snell, Yamamoto, Tyler Glasnow, Tony Gonsolin, Dustin May, Roki Sasaki. I mean, the list goes
Bobby
on and on.
Miller.
Bobby Miller. Outfield wise. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Dodgers are the class of that division. They should win it fairly comfortably. That is pretty unexciting. So let's move to something that is more exciting, which is NL wildcards. I can take a stab at going first here. Similar pattern to me between the AL and the NL, which is that I think the central divisions are going to be generally mediocre. And so I'm not predicting wild cards for central teams in either division. For the NL wildcards, I'm going 2 from the East and 1 from the West. So I had the Braves winning the NL East. I'm going to take the Mets, the Phillies, and the Arizona Diamondbacks as my 3 wildcard teams. To me, those are just the next 3 best and most likely squads. I think you could make a case for the Brewers. You could make a case for the Padres, and then things are getting real thin for me in the NL. So I'll take the Diamondbacks, the Mets, and the Phillies as my 3 wildcard teams. Theo, how about you?
Diamondbacks as well. I got 1 from each division. So it's Mets, Cubs, and Diamondbacks. I think the Cubs will find a way. I think the division's going to be close in the NL Central, and the Brewers will come out top. The Mets, they have a deep lineup. Their rotation's not as deep enough right now, but obviously Steve Cohen has no limits to his checkbook and who he can add at the trade deadline, no matter how much salary he has to take on to get the Mets in there. And then the Diamondbacks, I mean, adding Corbin Burns, if they didn't add him this offseason, I don't know if I put them in this position. And maybe it is, the Atlanta Braves still squeaking in on the last day of the season like this past fall. So I think there's going to be a better balance. It's going to be a little more fun, but I think like it has been in the last few years, the NL wildcard race has definitely been a lot more wide open for teams, but at least from like August to the beginning of September, but then it really does start to fizzle out. And I think it's still going to play out the same way, but those are 3 teams I have coming out on top.
Right on. Jeremy, your 3 NL wildcards, please.
Yeah, so I went a little bit different here. I did go Brewers, who Theo had winning the Central. I did take a wild card from the West. I took the Padres.
Nice.
So didn't go with the Diamondbacks like both of you. I went with the Padres. And then with my third, I struggled a little bit because I'm like, I could go with the Mets. Don't really love that idea. Wanted to go with kind of a sleeper team because I feel like every year there's a team that comes out of nowhere. So I went back to the Central and took the Pirates.
Ooh.
And I think that there's obviously some young talent there. And I don't know if it's Derek Shelton or what, but I do like the Pirates, and maybe I'm a year too early. Maybe I'm 5 or 6 years too early. But I'm taking the Pirates.
5 from 6 years from now, they might not have Paul Skeens, so
that's the truth. So, but I'm taking the Pirates as the 6th seed, and once you make it in the playoffs, you never know what can happen.
That is fun, Jeremy. The Pirates, and I like the thought of having a dark horse there. Obviously, the rotation being the strength of Skeens, Mitch Keller, Jared Jones, probably Bubba Chandler at some point on the way
also
up.
got Thomas Harrington coming up behind Chandler alongside him. So they got a deep rotation.
I sure do.
You guys all wish you took the Pirates now.
I think the question, no, I'm not changing. I think the question you have, obviously, with the Pirates, right, is are you going to get enough offense beyond O'Neill Cruz, Brian Reynolds, Brian Hayes? I think you're struggling a little bit to get like a kind of core 5 in your lineup, but I like that pick. It's bold and spicy, if nothing else. Okay, all the chips on the line. Everyone has to pick a World Series winner. Jeremy, we're gonna start with you. Who you got taking home everything in October?
In a very unexciting pick, I'm going with the Dodgers going back to back.
No. Theo, who's your
In a
World
slightly
Series?
more exciting pick, I have the Phillies over the Yankees in 6 games
Ooh.
and getting their title while they still can. Because, as we mentioned earlier, the Phillies core that they've really built around Bryce Harper in the last few years is starting to get a little. I mean, most of them are still in their younger 30s. I mean, really, Zach Wheeler, 35. You don't know how much longer he's going to have enough gas in the tank to keep going. We know what they will get with Max Kepler. The Phillies fans will learn with them for themselves. But
A
aside
low
from that,
BABIP.
I mean, if you could just take the hitting of Nick Castellanos and the fielding of Max Kepler, you would have an all-star every year, but you can't always have that. So I think the Phillies are going to win it all this season just so they can finally get that title with this collective core, and Bryce Harper can finally have his World Series ring, and then that might be it for them.
I like that pick, although I gotta say, Philly as a city is a little spoiled if they win the World Series this year. Holding a Super Bowl and a World Series all at once feels a little unfair.
Well, it's better than some of the other alternatives. So, like the Yankees or Dodgers winning it again.
100%. I'm going to keep things in the NL and go with the Braves. I love the Brave squad. I think they're really competitive, good balance of like an explosive offense and a really difficult to match up with rotation when you get in the playoffs. So here's my question for you guys before we move on to individual awards. Is the NL that much better than the AL, or is it coincidental that we have all picked NL World Series champs? Anyone got strong thoughts there?
I think Jeremy just took the safe pick and we got a little more creative. So it's coincidence.
Jeremy out here catching strays, dude.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But I mean, how much better were the Dodgers than everybody else last year?
No, right? They were incredibly better. Best team in baseball in the regular season, and they showed it in the postseason. And I think, I won't be the most upset person in the world if they go back to back, but it's not fun predicting that.
You're right. But if I'm going to make predictions, I at least want to try to be right.
You want to win. If we're going to put money on this and then review it in October or November, then yeah, you want to have the winnings.
Okay.
That's why I told you I'm writing these down so that I can come back and say, I got it right.
It's okay. These are all going in the running order right now. So while you hopped off for a second, Jeremy, Theo and I discussed, let's do a review episode shortly after the conclusion of the World Series when we have nothing better to talk about and we can go through and hold ourselves accountable. Okay, let's move on to individual awards. We're going to go through Cy Young's, MVPs, and Rookie of the Year. This is a little bit more fun. Might see a little bit more variation here. I definitely intend to keep my picks a little maybe off the beaten path because people don't necessarily repeat that much in these individual awards categories. So I'll kick us off. We're going to start with AL Cy Young. I'm going to go Garrett Crochet. And here's my rationale. Here's my thought process here, right? So the Red Sox paid handsomely to acquire a couple years of Crochet from the White Sox. They gave up 2 premium prospects in Kyle Teal, who, did you guys see him take Roki Sasaki deep in spring training this week? That was great. Kyle Teal and Braden Montgomery went the other way in that trade, so they paid up. The Red Sox made massive strides with their pitching development and with their pitching performance in 2024, having raided the Twins organization for some key staffers there. I like the fit of Crochet in Fenway with a little bit more of a forward-thinking organization than the White Sox, and he was still incredibly successful in 2024 on the South Side. So I'm going to go with Garrett Crochet for AL Cy Young. Jeremy, who you got?
I'm going to take a bounce back year from Garrett Cole.
Ooh,
and he threw, 200 innings in 2022, 209 innings in 2023, only 95 innings last year.
Okay.
But when I took the Yankees to win the East, it's on the account of they're going to have to get a better version of Garrett Cole, in my opinion. So went with Garrett Cole and like that pick. So, well, I guess we'll see if he can stay healthy.
Okay. Theo, last but not least, AL Cy.
Yeah, I kind of teased this earlier. someone from this deep Seattle Mariners starting rotation, and I went with Logan Gilbert, who's been one of the more consistent starting pitchers in the last 3 seasons, led all of Major League Baseball with a 0.88 whip last season. And I know it's not the most standard of stats for people to use and sabermetrics to use, but it's one I really like. And if he can just build off the success he had this last season, and if someone like that can really step up for the Mariners, if our offense is not picking it up for them, I think he's definitely the guy who can take that next step and secure the Cy Young to really get them into the postseason. So I really like what he has to offer, so I'm going with him.
I love that pick. I love Logan Gilbert. He's one of my absolute favorite pitchers. Did you guys know he's added a splinker this offseason? So that's
I know
fun.
now.
That'll be fun to see. Okay, NL Cy Young, Jeremy, you get to go first here. Who you got, sir?
So if I'm taking the Pirates to make the playoffs, right, they're going to have somebody be really, really good. They're going to have a lot of people be really, really good. Paul Skeens was amazing last year. I feel like he's just going to come back and do it again. Maybe could have had an argument to win last year. This year, leading his team to the playoffs is going to win the Cy Young.
Okay. Theo, you got anything different from Paul Skeens in the NL?
Yeah, I do. This is the one I went completely out of left field with that no one else was going to have. I went with Mackenzie Gore with the Washington Nationals. I think he's finally going to have his season living up to that prospect hype he had 5 years ago and just get things together. Now, I know he's still got some control issues he's got to work on, specifically with his slider. That's definitely not the thing, but if he can get that in order, I think that's going to work out for him really well. And I think if he can finally feel comfortable throwing his sweeper as well, that's going to push him over the edge. And I think the Nationals are not going to make it to the postseason, but they're going to finally be on the cusp like the Pirates are, of being a year or two away, and that's going to take someone really standing out with the team, whether it's their young prospects of Dylan Cruz or James Wood. But I think it's going to be on the pitching front, and Mackenzie Gore is just going to surprise everyone like Tarek Skubal kind of did this last year and take it.
Wow. I can't say I saw that one coming. Wow.
No.
Mackenzie Gore. Bring it on. Boy, are you going to look smart if that actually happens. Wow.
I am not going to look smart because it's not going to happen, but I want to have fun, damn it.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, I also wanted to be a bit more fun with my NL Cy pick, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I don't find the field as compelling here, right? I'm was looking through names and prepping for this. The only guy I can make a really compelling case for, I think, is Zach Wheeler. He's probably been the most consistent NL starter in the past 4 or 5 years. Chris Sale had an incredible season last year. Is it likely he stays healthy all season? Doesn't have a great track record. Blake Snell, sometimes a little up and down. Corbin Burns, Dylan Cease, those guys. I'm going to go with Skeens too. Jeremy said it. He had a case to make for NL Rookie of the Year and Cy last year. I think the only thing that can probably stop him is a major injury, which I hope for the sake of baseball he does not get. So I'll take Skeens as well, and we will move it on to the AL MVP picks. And Theo, you're up first in this category.
Well, I decided to go with someone who's certainly had a lot of success in the postseason and will be bringing their team back there after not making it last season, and that's Corey Seager. I think he is going to have his best regular season, better than his shortened season due to injury in 2023, and the Rangers are going to need someone to step up to really help them there, and he's definitely the guy. I mean, we're talking about a 2-time World Series MVP. I think this is the year he does it, even just at 31 years old. I mean, Judge won it at 32 last season with a lot of home run power, but we know what Seager is capable of, and if he can just be the leader and alongside Marcus Semien, one of those two guys just really helping carry these younger guys into more success, and that way they can get back in there. So I really have an inkling that it's going to be Seager, but it's more likely than my Mackenzie Gore pick. We'll say that.
Right on. I'm going to go with the guy who narrowly missed out in 2024, and I'm going to go with Bobby Witt Jr. Reason is that he just checks so many of the boxes, right? He really ascended last year to kind of superstar status. He gives you everything: speed, defense, power, face of the franchise type dude. Narrowly missed out to Judge last year. I think he's going to put up similar numbers, younger, better chance of staying healthy than Aaron Judge. So Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be my pick for AL MVP. Jeremy?
So I'm going to go with a younger guy that had a not great 2024 by his standards.
Okay.
Was phenomenal at 21 and 22, and is going to have a bounce back year here in 2025 for the AL West champion Seattle Mariners, and that's Julio Rodriguez.
Ooh, love that.
Yeah, we're all over the place with this one.
All over the place, and I like that. Which brings us to NL MVP. Oh, guys, it's really hard to not just pick Ohtani, given that he's going to hit and throw. And I'm going first, so I'm going to pick Shohei Ohtani because he's going to hit and throw. Just absolutely ridiculous production. I think like it is not hyperbole to say we are witnessing the greatest player ever to play the game right now. Happy to have that conversation with anyone. Ohtani, it's Ohtani's award until he's hurt or someone takes it from him. I really like the NL field. There's a ton of guys like Soto playing for the Mets is really interesting. Fernando Tatis, hopefully a full healthy season, is interesting. Mookie Betts is always good. Harper's been brought up in this conversation. So many good guys. But I'm going to go Shohei for NL MVP. Jeremy, over to you. What you got?
I agree. Like I wanted to put a different name down. It just didn't make sense. It's the best team in baseball, the best player in the world. And like you mentioned, he's not just going to hit. He's also going to throw. And we don't know how many innings. But it's pretty fair to say that, like you mentioned, it's his award until someone takes it from him or he's hurt. And I hope he's not hurt. So Ohtani.
Theo, how about you, man?
I think Juan Soto is going to take it from him.
Ooh.
First year in New York, make a lot, well, with the Mets, and really make an impact there to push them over the edge and get them back into the postseason and maybe a little further this time, but we'll see. I think it's Shohei or Soto, and I want to go Soto, anticipating you guys were going to be, again, the safe picks. But again, if it's Shohei winning the 4th MVP and really becoming the first player to do it cleanly. Sorry, I hate Bonds, so I'm going to rip into him and not being worthy of 7 MVPs, but maybe 3. So to finally have someone win 4 MVPs cleanly would not be the worst thing in the world. So I want it to be Soto personally, but if it's Shohei again, that's a good thing for baseball.
Right on. Okay, I dig it. All right, now we're getting to the really kind of wide open awards to finish. We're going to finish with Rookie of the Year predictions. We're going to start in the AL, which to me feels like a pretty wide open field. I don't think there's like a really heavy betting favorite here, nor should there be in a Rookie of the Year for preseason field. Jeremy, who do you have for AL Rookie of the Year?
So when you talked, when we were making our division picks, talked about the Tigers and how they're going to need someone to step up and be that middle of the rotation guy. You mentioned a few names. You said could be talking about AL Rookie of the Year, and that's where I'm going. Jackson Jobe,
Okay.
Arguably the best pitching prospect in baseball prior to Sasaki coming over, and I think that if he's able to live up to expectations, I mean, you could say this about a lot of rookies, right? But if he's able to live up to expectations, even most expectations, he's definitely going to be in the mix for Rookie of the Year. So that's where I'm going. Jackson Jobe. Dig
it. Theo, who you got for AL Rookie of the Year?
I also have Jackson Jobe, and based on your reaction, Jamie, you might have the exact same one, but maybe not. But yeah, I mean, just reiterating what Jeremy already said, best pitching prospect behind Sasaki before he signed over here. And again, I think the Tigers are going to make a real run at the division. I don't think they're going to come out on top, and I think him stepping into this rotation, being behind Flaherty, Skubal, that will be a huge help for him, and just being comfortable because, we got 2 guys who are a Cy Young winner and All-Star caliber ahead of him and that's going to relieve some of the expectations. It's not going to be the same level that Paul Skeens had with the Pirates this last year, and I think we all picked him last year. I know I did, as the Rookie of the Year in the NL, and that obviously panned out great. So I hope that's going to be the case for Job, and he can adjust well into the majors and, really bolster this Tigers rotation to be the closest spin to what they had like back in 2012.
Yeah, right on. I did not go with Jackson Job. I'm going a different direction. I'm going hitter, and I'm going Christian Campbell. Jeremy, when you were out off screen for a couple of minutes, we talked about the Red Sox kind of uber trio of like having 3 kind of consensus top 15 type guys, and 2 of those guys really being in the top 5 to 10 of prospects in baseball, with Christian Campbell or Roman Anthony. Campbell, to me, is maybe a little bit more of a stable offensive profile, maybe projects to have a little bit of a better on-base percentage than Anthony, a little bit more speed, maybe a slightly clearer path to playing time right from the jump. Christian Campbell is one of the absolute best stories in minor league baseball last year. The Red Sox did a ton of work of adding impact to his offensive profile, improving his swing decisions significantly. So I'm going to go Christian Campbell off the Boston Red Sox, which brings us to our last prediction, which is going to be NL Rookie of the Year. And I think I'm up first here. Yes, I am. And this one's tough. I'm going away from the favorite here. There is a betting favorite for NL Rookie of the Year, and it's Roki Sasaki, who obviously went to the Dodgers, hadn't, it was one of the biggest offseason storylines. That is a little boring to me. There's a number of other interesting candidates. I think probably the guy with the clearest path to the kind of playing time you're looking for is going to be Dylan Cruz, one of my favorites from the exceptionally strong 2023 draft class. So I'm going to go Dylan Cruz to start turning around this Nationals franchise that's been in the doldrums for a while. And I don't think that necessarily looks like an absolutely spectacular season, more like solid over incredible production. But Cruz is going to be a really good player for a long time. So he's going to be my pick in the NL. Jeremy, who you got in the National League?
I went, Theo's going to hate it because I go with the one that I think makes the most sense, and that's Roki Sasaki. Top prospect in baseball, has done all the things on the international circuit, and now gets to do it for the best team in baseball. So low pressure, even though he's on the best team, he's going to slot into the back of that rotation and just be able to do his thing every 5 days. So I took Roki Sasaki.
I covered the one division we have not talked about for an NL Rookie of the Year candidate with NL Central, and I think a big part that will help the Cubs get back into the postseason is if they have some young bat finally step up with the heavy expectations that's been put on them. We haven't seen that from Pete Crow Armstrong, but I think we're going to see it from Matt Shaw this season. I think he's going to be an Evan Longoria type of rookie at third base and just go off at the plates. He's not going to have the same heavy expectations now that Kyle Tucker's there. If Kyle Tucker wasn't there to really bolster that lineup, and I think he's really just going to fit in well and just help them get back into the postseason for the first time in a few years. And that's, the type of rookie you want to have in that lineup and help them out.
Y'all, I really feel like between the 3 of us, we've maybe nailed this NL Rookie of the Year. That's a strong selection of candidates. I like the Shaw pick, Theo. That's a great way. Great way to end predictions. So what we're going to do is we'll come back to these after the season's done. We'll review our handiwork, and we'll actually have some updates on who did best with preseason predictions. But guys, this was fun. We're going to call it a day there for the sake of time. Next week is a little bit TBD because I'm going to be in Fort Myers. So we will figure that out and let folks know what the plan is. But until we talk to you next, wait, let me tease something real quick. Not next week, but the week after, we are going to be back on the show with a member of the Minnesota Twins minor league system to be announced. So excited for that. Should be fun. But until then, thank you guys for supporting the show. Thanks for your questions and comments. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the spring weather and enjoy the spring training baseball. Catch you next time.